Hey guys, welcome to Tinker Time 80. I'm going to show you today how I took an old weathered barrel and turned it into this. I kind of gave it a nice refurb. So this is the original barrel here. It was bought for $50. It was sitting in somebody's driveway. They're not going to use it anymore. And at first I really liked it, but now I think it just looks a little bit more weathered than what I want to use it for. Okay, time to take you through the process. So first I used a belt sander, and I used a pretty aggressive grit on that thing, but I left a lot of this stuff kind of rough looking. I didn't want it to look like a brand new barrel. Kind of want it to still look used and old, antique, but not completely weathered like it was. So here we are at the completion of sanding it all down with the belt sander. And I left a couple of the rings on. Never took really all of them off because I don't want it to obviously fall apart, but I at least kept 2 to 3 on at a time just to keep it all together. So then I took a less aggressive grit, like 120 and 220 grit sandpaper, and kind of went over it just to give it a nice smooth finish, because that aggressive grit of the belt sander really did a number on it. And just to let you know, this is a very long process. This isn't something that takes a few seconds, and it does kind of get boring. And we're still sanding. Okay, back to it. Here we are again. This is after I started putting a little bit of the stain on it. Kind of giving you a little preview of what the barrel is going to look like with stain versus completely sanded down. I was pretty happy with this color. You can use really whatever color it is. I think I'm going to show you here shortly. I used Minwax. It's kind of my favorite stain because if you miss a spot, you can just go right back over it and hit it, and it doesn't really show lines where you've hit it and haven't hit it. And here, I'm showing you that basically I took off the rings and I kind of rearranged all the rings during the process to make sure, one, that the entire barrel was sanded and not just what you can see, and also everything was stained, not just what you can see. So I'm putting the stain on here, going to give it a little buff off, and on to the next step. So here it is stained, and now I got the rings. So I sanded all the rings down with 120 grit, and then I just kind of hit it with a satin gloss spray paint just to clean it up a little bit. So again, it doesn't look completely weathered and rusty, but then again, I also don't want them to look brand new, so I left some of the texture to it, and then I just sprayed them. Okay, this part right here, this is where it's a little bit time consuming, and you do a lot of measuring and a lot of walking around the barrel, and then tap and push and tap and push. But basically, I'm just measuring it to make sure the rings are as even as I can get it. I did find that the rings are not perfect. They're a little bit warped, probably from years of use or abuse or whatever you want to call it. But I got them pretty close. They were within about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch all the way around. I did realize once you get it tight, if you can't get it completely right, just tap one side up and the other side down, and they'll level out. So now I'm showing you I'm using self-tapping screws to put into these rings. And I'm kind of doing this to keep it still, because as time goes, hot, cold, contracting and expanding, the barrel rings will shift and move, and to keep myself from having to keep tapping them all the time and just keep them permanently in place, I'm just going to screw them in place permanently. In this one, sometimes the best tools are in the trash, so I didn't want to stare at those bright silver screw heads, so I was kind of looking for a little something to kind of keep the overspray from getting all over the place. So here's a cheese container lid, and a little dab will do ya. And no more screws. And here I am outside with my sprayer. I have a Fuji sprayer. I used polyacrylic satin, and I gave it a couple really good thick coats because, again, this thing's going to be in my outdoor kitchen. It's not necessarily outside, but it's not really inside in a temperature-controlled environment. So I just wanted to give it a nice coat just to keep it from weathering back up again and to keep it looking kind of like this as long as possible. And that's pretty much the end of it right there. That's my barrel, and we're back to the beginning picture again. And that's how I did it. So if you guys have any questions, hit me up. If you like it, subscribe. I'm going to be doing a whole lot more videos on a bunch of little things that I tinker on. I think I might even do some whiskey barrel end tables.